My name is Hunter. My pronouns are he, they, and I'm with Power to Fly. And you are at the Power to Fly Chat and Learn. So glad you are here today. We have such an awesome lineup today. Not one, but two speakers sharing one screen. Look at this. That is not a virtual background, friends. That is real. That is 3D. That is all actually happening right now. They fooled me. I was like, look at that cool background. I was like, oh no, this is amazing. So we got a very exciting chat today. So we're going to introduce those speakers in just a moment. We have HashiCorp today with Priyanka and Kelly, and our topic is thrive in your technical sales career, how to strengthen relationships and upskill yourself. So this is an awesome chat that I'm very, very excited to be a part of. So before we jump in, a little bit of housekeeping here. Know that this is a shared space, so please keep in mind we want to make this a safe space for all of us to have a great next hour. So feel free to turn on your cameras. You can participate. No need to be Instagram ready. We're all just here hanging out, learning as we do here. So a little business casual afternoon. You can feel free to write in the chat box, and that's a great way to ask questions throughout. We can touch on those throughout the conversation, and we're also going to answer your questions directly at the end of this chat as well. So feel free to keep those questions coming in often and early so we get a chance to take them in and answer them. This conversation is being recorded, so there will be a link within about 2 to 4 business days after the chat. You'll get an email with a rewatch link. And note that you may pop up in the recording if your camera is on. And at any time, write in the chat. Let us know where you're calling in from. I'm hailing from New York City right now. We'd love to know where you're calling in from. And anything that resonates with you, drop it in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. Okay, so without further ado, we have HashiCorp today. Such a cool company. HashiCorp believes infrastructure enables innovation, and they are helping organizations operate that infrastructures in the cloud. Their suite of multi-cloud infrastructure is automated products with open source projects at their core. This underpins the most crucial applications for the largest enterprises, there's the word, friends, enterprises in the world. Organizations of all sizes, from well-known brands to ambitious startups, rely on their solutions for provisions, secure, connect, and to run their business critical applications so that they can deliver essential services, communication tools, and entertainment platforms worldwide. Such a cool company, so many offerings there. I was, doing some research on the company. So cool how they have these like individual things, but they also work together as a suite. So there's so many different options that are going on here at HashiCorp. And now we have the lovely humans that are a part of HashiCorp. After all, humans make up companies, and we have two amazing people with us today. So we have Priyanka, and she is a leader with more than a decade of experience. On the left there, or yes, camera left. Yeah, there we go. I love that. Camera left there. Priyanka is a leader with more than a decade of experience in solutions engineering and technical sales. She was a sales engineer leader at Akamai Technologies, Stripe, and is currently at HashiCorp, as we are aware. She is passionate about making impact throughout work and building teams and empowering people to excel. Hello, Priyanka. Hello. And then we also have Kelly. Kelly's a fast-paced growth mindset leader known for her inclusive empowerment and driving to exceptional results. An evangelist who speaks globally on technology and why it matters. She is currently a senior solutions engineer at HashiCorp, helping with largest customers solve multi-cloud challenges, and through HashiCorp Enterprises, products like Terraform, Console, Vault, and Boundary. Please welcome Kelly and Priyanka. Hi, friends.
Yay.
So where are you two calling in from today?
We're actually in the HashiCorp headquarters here in San Francisco. We're in a real room called Lanzen.
We're both located in the Bay Area, and we are so excited to be here with you all. So thank you so much, Hunter, for having us and for Power to Fly.
Oh, absolutely. It's such a pleasure to have you both. So before we jump into our Q&A, you have a little presentation for us. Is that right? Kind of walk us through some stuff?
Yes, we do.
Awesome.
Yeah. Let's roll through it. I mean, I think, technical sales is very dear to both Kelly and I. We've pivoted into this, a while ago, I think. And the more we talk about it, the more we are passionate about it. So I just thought, let's start with what is technical sales. I often get asked, what are you doing again? Are you in sales? But we're also pre-sales engineers, or we're called solutions consultants or solutions engineers. Here at HashiCorp, we're called solutions engineers, right? Or a customer engineer. So you must have heard this word kind of being thrown around. So I decided to ask ChatGPT. I'm like, hey, what's technical sales, or who is a technical sales engineer? How would you describe it? And ChatGPT, they actually threw out a nice big paragraph, of which I picked out a couple of key points that or skills that are so relevant to our job, our day in and day out. So it says we're customer focused. You need to have those technical and business skills. Communication is the crux of everything. Building relationships, making sure you're aligned to your customers' goals. And the more I started thinking about it, and you break it down, yes, those are the key skills that you need to focus on building while you're going through this journey, right? So relationship building, growth mindset, knowing your technology, focusing on values and outcomes, focusing on communication. I think those are things that are very, very important. So we kind of decided that let's talk about, building relationships and making sure that, you're growing yourself or upskilling yourself through this process. So that's what we're here to talk to you about today. I think Kelly is going to talk to us about what she does in her role and how she builds relationships.
Okay, thanks. Hunter, next slide, please. So just to break it down, Priyanka was like, how about you talk about this when you get a new account or a new customer? How do you typically approach it? And strengthening relationships could mean a lot of things. There could be internally with your different departments that you work on. But for this slide and for this discussion, it's really going to be on strengthening customer relationships. So we really start out trying to understand who's who in the zoo, right? Who are the technical decision makers? Who are the business decision makers? Who's your economic buyer or the signatory, and really understand what their motivations are, right? Like someone who is a technical decision maker is going to have much different motivations versus someone who's leading a business who owns, has like a profit and loss versus someone who's just leading a team and things like that. So really invest in understanding your customer, understanding what their business is about. How do they make money? Have they had outages? What's happening from a public perspective? And then the second one is really about understanding the business pain. So the saying goes, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them in ratio. So you should always be listening and listening and listening to make sure that your customer really feels that you understand their pain. When an outage happened, what did that mean for them? Did that mean they had to work for 3 days straight or for 3 weeks, right? Or does that mean that they lost money? What are their key challenges right now? Is it because of customer layoffs, unfortunately, right? Like, what's this macroeconomic environment like? Really ask good discovery questions and make sure that once you figure that information out, how do you align your project and your technology to align with their key initiatives and make yourself really make this deal really qualified, right? There is a good deal here. There's a good timeline. There's a compelling event. And then once your deal is qualified, this is where you start to do more of the relationship building between you and your customer. How do you build trust? And as a technical person, the way that you build trust is by building credibility. And usually it's around your technology or even around the space that you play in. I really like to think of myself as a technical advisor, not like a salesperson or a technical salesperson. It's really how do you give them advice based off the challenges that they have and really see their problems as your problems, and they really feel like you are trying to help them. And especially as a SE, one of the biggest part that I own is the technical validation part of your deal. And technical validation is usually your proof of concept or your proof of value, which is a short amount of time for them to test out your product. So you need to be delivering on timelines. You need to be communicating often. You need to be setting up office hours or making sure that you're available to them anytime they have questions. And really, making sure that you are there for them anytime that they have any kinds of questions. And even if it means it's not on your product, maybe it's like, hey, I don't know this person, but here's what I can do for you. It's not a no, but it's like, hey, I'm not an expert in this, but here's where I am an expert at, but let me try to help you with the other one. Or let me introduce you to a partner team that might know more about that. Or let me introduce you to a customer who's had that problem before. And then the next part is really creating champions. And this part is, I'm so passionate about this one because this is really where your deals get accelerated. And I think about it as like a multiplier. For all of your big deals that you've ever had, or even like the $1 million deals that we have, it is almost impossible to have a big $1 million deal without a champion in there. And sometimes there's influencers, sometimes there's coaches, sometimes there's champions, but what makes someone a champion? And for me, it's really three things. Number one, do they have power and influence within the organization? A lot of times, they'll love your product, or someone who's engineer is like, oh, I love Terraform. And I'm like, awesome. Until I know that they can influence and have power in the organization, they are not a champion. They are a coach or an influencer at that point. And the second thing is, are they selling on your behalf when you are not in the room? So that really goes and speaks to the influence part, right? Like when it's an internal meeting, are they saying we need to have Terraform or we need to have Vault? Like how are they influencing and using your product and really selling it for you, and especially at the executive level, or for the people that are maybe your detractors that are like, no, we already have this product, we don't need that one. So those champions are critical to being able to move your deal through the organization. They also give you tips on like, hey, you should be talking to this person, or they give you feedback. Like, how do you think that meeting went? And they could say, look, Adam he wasn't really buying it. Maybe you should have a second meeting with him. And he's really advising you. And again, it really helps to accelerate and multiply your deal. And then the last part is the sales outcome. So, hopefully you've done everything right and you get to close the deal, but the deal is never done and the relationship is not over after that PO or that transaction is done. And one of the most important things is that the Valley and tech world is a small place. You want to make sure that you are nurturing the relationship inside and out. And just because the deal's over, that means that now they're in the adoption phase. And guess what? The faster that they adopt, the more likely they are to increase the deal later on. So investing in adoption and really nurturing the relationship is going to make your deal go faster and have your deal size get even bigger. So it's really critical that you nurture the relationship all the way through and are checking in with them constantly and asking what they need. And there are going to be challenges, right? Technology isn't perfect. People aren't perfect. So make sure you're nurturing those relationships. And then the last piece to wrap up this slide is really, you are never alone. You have a whole village of people around you, things like your customer, your account rep, people like your partner team, your professional services team, your renewals rep, your engineering team. Like, this is never just your problem, but working with your village and having everyone work as a team together will be critical to your success, and really shows to your customer that they have this unified force of people behind them that really want to make them successful too. So, and then moving on to the next slide, we thought it'd be good to talk just, we talked about the relationship part, but how do we really upskill yourself to get ready for some of those pieces?
I think you made a great point about building credibility, right? I think one of the first things to build that credibility is to make sure that you know enough about various topics. So you position yourself about as a technical advisor.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you have to maintain your growth mindset. Make sure that you're always learning, have intellectual curiosity, be determined to actually learn and absorb. That's when you'll be able to kind of overcome any obstacles that come your way. I actually thought it was great to kind of split this into smaller sized chunks. You need to have a very strong technical aptitude, become the technical expert in the room, right? Keep learning about the changes, dive into data. Sometimes your customer's data tells you so much more about what you should be talking to them about That's where you need to focus. And then you have your business skills. So think about, do you understand the sales cycle? Does your customer have an upcoming event? Are they going into production with something? Is that something that you can help with or get engaged with them on? Those are kinds of things that you want to focus on from a business perspective. Also understand the industry your customer is in and the industry that your product is in, and how they kind of play with each other. I think having empathy and understanding their pain points, you brought that up as well. Understanding, where you can make an impact will help you go a long way.
100%.
Yeah, and the underlying part is, of course, having very, very strong soft skills, be communicating with them often, clear, concise, make sure that you're improving your communication skills, and you're also very organized, and you have the accountability to be responsive to the customer when they're asking you about something. Yeah, I mean, I think that was it. I think from a presentation perspective, we just wanted to kind of put together a few points that we thought, hey, if we don't write it down, we're going to not talk about it. So
yeah, and I think this will help frame the discussion for some of the questions that we got, and understanding the full process would be helpful. So we hope that was something that you all could learn or take away from it. And always, we're here for questions as well if you ever want to follow up or dive deeper into it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. It was really great to hear how, from your perspective, how that works. And one of those statements that you said early on, I think it was Kelly, you said we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so use them in ratio.
Yes. Yeah.
That is great advice for everything.
Yes, good point. Applies them everywhere.
So friends, how this is going to work now for the next about 40 minutes or so, you can ask your questions. So feel free to drop them in the chat and we will take a look at those. You've also pre-submitted questions in advance. And I just want to say thank you so much for doing that, because there's some really, really great questions. And now we're going to go through some of those as well. So feel free to write in new ones. And if you hear your question being asked, you can give a shout out to it in the chat if you like. Okay. So first question, I love kicking off the conversation with this question. How technical do you need to be in order to work in technical sales?
Well, Hunter, let me tell you, because I did a whole talk on this, because I think that the word technical is kind of like a gatekeeping word for a lot of people. It's to scare people away to think that they don't have enough technical skills. But the real answer is technical is a completely different meaning depending on who you're talking to, which company you're at. Even if you're at the same company, 2 people on 2 different teams could have a completely different word for it. Like in the Great British Baking Show, they have a technical bake-off, right? Like it literally depends on who you're talking to. So that for me is something that I've had to overcome. Like my biggest imposter syndrome is feeling not technical enough. But the reality is that it completely differs based on who you talk to. So don't be afraid, or don't not apply because you think you're not technical enough. But the reality is it is completely dependent on what background this person has, what they come with their own lens of what technical means. And every person you interview or get interviewed by has a different definition.
I agree. And I think it's about taking a very complex, topic and kind of trying to simplify it. So if you feel like, hey, this is a technical concept, breaking it down and being able to talk about it in a smaller chunk and, being able to articulate it, I think that's the basis of technical sales. How do you learn enough to actually break down that topic into smaller pieces is the big part of it.
Yeah, and using a lot of examples. Like we talk about HashiCorp as being infrastructure that is the underpinning of all your technology. And then I like to say it's like the engine underneath the hood, right? Giving a lot of simple, relatable examples that your grandma or someone who is non-technical will be able to make it easy for them.
I love that. Also, Great British Bake Off technical challenge. That got me through like 2.5 years of sitting inside.
It gets you. Really, I'm not even a baker and I watched it.
Oh yeah, me neither. It was just like, oh, this is like a warm blanket.
I
know. Okay, next great question. What are some of the most valuable soft skills to have in SaaS sales in that environment? Priyanka, would you like to kick us off?
Yeah, I mean, I think I mean, your soft skills are really the basis of any kind of scales. I think that sales, I mean, it's a very transferable skill to have, right? Whether you're in SaaS or in hardware or you're selling some kind of, goods, I think it's more about how do you approach that problem rather than, hey, do I need a specific set of soft skills for this job versus this job, right? So actually creating the basis for it is very, very important. When you're particularly in SaaS, because the question is about SaaS, you're probably pivoting into thinking about how do I design a solution that will scale to multiple people or multiple companies. That's the kind of sales that I think we're in HashiCorp, where we're trying to sell, to companies who want them in larger workloads. But again, communicating value from like a macro perspective is a huge part of being in SaaS sales as opposed to a hardware sales, where your priorities are a little different. But I want to say that things like focusing on ROI and stuff like that is very, very transferable. So I don't think that there's a yeah.
I agree.
Awesome. Love that. So another question we have, someone asked, I'm looking into pivoting from retail sales to technical sales. How can I showcase my transferable skills during the interview process? Would appreciate your advice on how to build the technical storytelling. Kelly, would you like to take this?
That's a really good question, and I love it because there's so many people that come from either non-technical backgrounds or they come from a very non-traditional background. And HashiCorp just did a whole series of getting into HashiCorp without having a technical background, because this is something that we're really passionate about, is that like the way that you reframe your story completely depends on you. You could look at one resume and say, oh, this person doesn't have a traditional background, or another person can read it and say, they might not have this background, but they have something else that we don't have. And as an example, like one of the women that I mentor, she used to be a teacher and she didn't have a technical background. She went to a coding boot camp, became a full stack developer, in a short amount of time. And she is an amazing SE because she's so good at being able to take difficult concepts and explain them in simple terms. And she is also like another good example of a lot of what we do is storytelling. And storytelling comes up in how you interview, right? How do you position, like as an example, before I was an SE, I didn't have sales engineering experience. I was never like a developer. I didn't have a practitioner background. But what I did have is I used to work in IT. So I used that story and said, I know I don't have an infrastructure background, but I've worked with a lot of IT professionals and I understand their pain points and their challenges. And I also used to work in vendor management when I was in IT. So I understand what the sales process is like. And for you working in retail sales, you understand that you have a quota. You understand that you know what the sales process is. You know how to motivate people. You see very quickly, your soft skills are going to be totally on point with where that's not going to be an area that you're going to need to work on in order to get the job. It's really about convincing people and reframing your story about, yeah, I don't have this, but here's an example of where I didn't know something and I learned really quickly on the job. Having like a little bank when you interview of these stories of another example of, yeah, I didn't have this, but I learned it really quickly and here's how I succeeded. And I was able to achieve 3x growth on my sales target when I was selling. Like, those types of stories people love to hear in interviews, and I think really sets you apart. It's not about what you don't have. It's really about reframing what you do have and making your different skill sets a value add, right? We don't want people that'll fit into the company. We want people to add to what we don't have. And everyone has something different that they bring to the table. And it's really just about highlighting that.
I love that. That's so great. And you mentioned earlier, Kelly, about your own imposter syndrome that there's been things that you've had to overcome. And I identify with that. And I think what you're speaking to really is about that as well. Like, I was a teacher. I can't be in tech. That's all like, people that are half my age and can write code since they were a baby or what, like all these things that are like, no, yes, some of those people exist, but also you can explain things really well to people. Exactly. And that's incredible, and that's your gift to give. And that it's just so nice to hear that you are embracing that in others and also your own journey with that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, your gift to give. I love that. That is exactly what it is. Everyone has their own gift to give, and it's really about highlighting that and being able to take it out and speak to it.
Yes, absolutely. So friends, if you would like to share your gifts in the form of questions, we have a half an hour left, so we would love to hear them. Ask them often and early. If you give me a rush of all your questions the last 5 minutes, I don't think I'll be able to get to all of them. So please, please, please keep those questions coming so we can get to all of them. Okay. Next question we have is in the spirit of transitions and pivoting. Someone asked, I'd love to transition inside my current company from technical recruitment into technical sales. I have learned a lot about the technical side of the business. How can I position myself as a good candidate for that? Priyanka,
This is such a great question, because being someone who works with technical recruiting so much, I already see that a lot of homework has been done here. This person's already gone through some kind of technical product knowledge or tried to upskill themselves. I love that, honestly. And I feel like being in recruitment, you've done some kind of selling. You've convinced someone to join your company. You've proposed or negotiated with them. So I think you have a lot of skills that are already kind of very useful in technical sales. I've spoken to very diverse set of people when I've been interviewing as well over the years. So knowing your industry and all of that is great. A couple of things that I think that you could do better is start shadowing conversations that other technical sales professionals in your company. You have the benefit of actually going and reaching out to a manager, reaching out to other SEs and saying, hey, can I jump on your call and listen in and see what you're doing differently, and kind of picking up on certain things. How do they work with customers? How do they approach problems, right? Try and sit through an end-to-end deal cycle. I think that's incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that helps. It also shows people who are recruiting internally, and we lost.
Oh, keep going. I think Hunter.
Oh, Hunter, are you there? Okay.
Sorry about that. My camera cut out for a sec.
Okay. I mean, I think, you have the benefit of knowing which managers are hiring. Make sure that your intentions are clear to the manager as well, saying, hey, I want to apply for this position that's coming up. Here's all the training I'm doing. What are your thoughts and processes? And if you can find a mentor like Kelly within a technical sales organization who can walk you through what the process is and stuff like that, that's the icing on the cake, because they'll be really able to guide you through the process. So I think that's a great fit. I would definitely open up that profile and want to explore it more.
Oh, and you said training, like you'll have access to a lot of the training that other salespeople do, and you have access to that now. So being able to tap into that and use that, it's free.
That's
great asset.
I love too, Priyanka, what you were saying earlier about listening in and absorbing, what other people are doing in their calls. And I think that's just a beautiful way to learn, because you're asking, you're getting someone's expertise without taking up necessarily like extra time as well. It's like, can I just be a fly on the wall and like see what you're doing? And then you can sidebar with them. Maybe you can get a coffee with them. And like, when you did this, how was that? What was going on there? Right? You can really dig in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I've done that a lot. When I joined a company as a leader, essentially try and join a lot of calls, listen to what your customer is saying, listen to what your SEs are saying. You just learn better that way.
Absolutely. Okay. So when speaking with clients, how do you walk the line between being technical and engaging? I think this is so hard, right? So like, not hard, but it's a craft. It's an art to like,
yes,
we have a mission, we have something we want to achieve, but we also want to be authentic.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all human. You must remember that as many challenges as you're having, trying to learn the product, trying to juggle customers and do 100 different things, your customer, your client's probably doing the same, right? They have their own set of priorities, their own set of challenges. I think identifying that and trying to connect with the person on that, and like you said, Hunter, being authentic about, why you're there and what you're trying to achieve. I think that kind of opens up the conversation a little bit more. Ask them how their day is going, right? I mean, ask them what's on top of their mind. I think that way you're going to be able to balance that. Hey, I'm going to jump into a technical topic, but also, you care about what the client's feeling as well. I think that's important. I would also say learn how to speak in the customer's language. The more you start spending time with the client, you'll start realizing that they have different ways to look at their problems. They have their own internal jargon. Like at HashiCorp, we have a entire document with 3-letter acronyms, right? And we love to bounce them around. I'm sure every company has that. So start reading those cues. I think that helps you build a better relationship as well. If you truly believe in the product that you're trying to sell, I think it becomes more about how are you going to exude that passion, how are you going to talk about it, and also spark that interest with the customer. So you're not necessarily being, hey, I'm going to talk about feature A, B, C, but you're also talking about here's how it will impact you. Here's what you can see at the end of the conversation. So I feel like identify with the customer first, and then these things will follow naturally.
I love that. And I love when you were talking about everyone has their different handbooks. It's so true. But the more you can, absorb that, then you can meet them where they are. And they're like, oh, this person has done their research. They know what our needs are, and they literally speak our language.
Yep.
Yeah. I love that. And two, when you were talking about, when you can talk about, personalizing things, I look over at Kelly's laptop. I'm like, Kelly and I have a lot to talk about, clearly, because there's so much fun stuff going on.
No shame at all. I love the stickers.
Yeah. And I love that. Exactly. It's like, and these are the things we can do. Like if the things that we choose to introduce into the frame, when you're like on a Zoom call, they are points of conversation, just keep it light and, break beyond just like, how's the weather today? Right.
Totally agree. Anything, like Priyanka said, we're all humans. Like we want to connect with each other on some level. And like I have some customers that want to talk about Kubernetes in their free time. That's totally cool. I think that's awesome. And I have some customers that are going skydiving on the weekends and they want to tell me about that, right? It's just getting to know someone like they're real humans and not a customer.
I love that. So on the spirit of that, of like building these relationships, what are some of your go-to strategies for building strong and trustworthy relationships with your customers? Any advice on how to navigate difficult conversations and constructive feedback? That second half of that question particularly, I feel like, is where a lot of people they start to hold their breath a little bit. I don't want to be a conflict or cause rage.
Oh yeah. Well, those are kind of two different questions. Maybe I'll breeze over the first one because I think I talked about that on the slide of like how do you earn trust and credibility with your customer, and that's really the best way to build a trustworthy relationship is earn trust and credibility. You do not assume that you go in there because you have some big brand like AWS or Microsoft that someone's heard of, that people trust you, right? You have to earn that and you have to earn your credibility. You never assume anything. And I think that's something that's a constant part of nurturing the relationship, which is sometimes the relationship is going to go up and down, right? Just like a normal relationship and dating, you're going to have fights. Some of them will be big, some of them will be small. So really it's about earning trust and credibility and nurturing that. And especially for me, I try to get as much interaction in person as possible, and just the human element of it, and that we are not just salespeople, that we actually care about them. So investing on what makes them tick, what they do in their free time, what motivates them, what kind of person are they? If they are really, really nice, does that mean they're not going to give me the direct feedback that I need? Are they not going to be able to tell me, hey, someone really hates your product and your demo sucked? Is he not going to give me that critical information? And sometimes they won't, especially certain technical engineers stereotypically, right? Not super confrontational. And I'm kind of the same too. But to the second part of the question is, how do you take constructive feedback, or how do you handle difficult customer feedback? And I think this relates to people with non-traditional backgrounds. If you are a waiter or a bartender or have ever worked in the customer service industry, you have a lot of experience in this. And the number one theme is the customer is always right. No matter what you believe is to be true, in any situation, right? It's there are two experiences and both are valid in one scenario. So you always have to keep that in mind. that even if you're right, you are wrong if the customer is telling you that you're wrong. So always remember the customer is correct, and they really set the tone. And really, Priyanka mentioned about having empathy. Like having these difficult conversations, the only thing that you can do is come with empathy and say, I totally understand why you're upset. I understand what the problem is. Validate their experience, validate why they're upset. You can't just be like, no, you're wrong. That was stupid. You made that decision. That was your F up. It's like, no, you want to make them feel like you understand. And no matter what it is that, you are going to help them and you are going to fix it.
And there's a solution. That's what we're here to offer, right? How do you get them out of that sticky situation that they got themselves into? That's probably why they're upset in the first place.
But you can't get out of a sticky situation if you don't acknowledge it, validate it, and also find a solution, to your point. And that's how you turn the relationship around. It's like, sorry, I messed up on this. My bad. Here's how I'm going to fix it. And really earn that trust again. And then the last part is really feedback is a gift always. And I think we really believe that at HashiCorp as well, is that hard feedback or constructive feedback is always hard to hear, but it's not personal. And how is it going to help you grow? That's why we do all these performance evaluations. That's why we elicit customer feedback. And that's how we grow and get better. And I think that also helps when you're in sticky customer environments, is giving them a space to feel heard. Otherwise, there's no way you're going to be able to move forward. So feedback is always a gift. And if you ever want some tips on it, there's a really great book called Thanks for the Feedback. I just bought it and I've just started it, but I've heard really, really good things. And it's about giving feedback, but also how to receive feedback as well.
Yeah, and sometimes even if you're in sales or tech sales or any of these things, you can ask for feedback. Like, hey, we just had that big presentation. How did we do? Right? You'll get a plethora of answers if you've done that. So yeah.
I think it shows yourself shows your humility as well to ask for feedback, that you care what they think and that you don't believe that you're the best vendor here ever. I think it really shows that you care about their opinion, and that you want to make it better and you want to continually improve.
Yeah, I love that. Feedback is a gift. And what you were speaking to, Kelly, about it being in the form of a growth mindset. That it's not a personal attack, or if it's done properly and done well, it can be actually a supportive thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone has had bad feedback, right? That was difficult to hear, but it's really about how you use that feedback and say, maybe it's not true, but at least that's how people perceive me. And that's what I need to know to help me. Right? Like, it's all about how you take that feedback and how you go with it. It's not all feedback, just like advice, you have to take to your core, but it's just a way to help you grow.
Yeah. And the hard feedback too, I think, for me at least, I will examine it deeper than positive feedback. Someone said, you did a great job at this talk. Well done. I'm like, thanks. Sure. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. But great. But if someone says, this thing at this moment, I'm like, if I agree with it or not, doesn't really matter. Because then, like you said, someone perceives something that didn't land or didn't work. So what is in it what's my side in that? And how can I adjust that for future scenarios? And when it comes up in a future scenario, in the back of my mind, I might be like, oh, here's that thing. And I'm going to try it this way this time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all like little tips that you can bring into your next presentation and really adjust it and make it even better.
Yeah. Okay. So we have about 20 minutes left, friends. So feel free to keep those questions coming in. We'd love to hear from you. Shifting topics here a little bit. Someone asked, when making cold calls, it's sometimes hard to not come across as spammy. Could you elaborate on how to turn our conversations into value-led selling?
This is such a great question. As technical sales professionals, you're normally not making as many cold calls, but being in sales, I think, we were talking about rejection the other day, and we're like, rejection is very, very normal, right? You have to grow a thick skin if you're in sales. You win some, it's a game of numbers. You probably make 20 calls a few of them are fruitful. So just setting the tone on that. But again, learning about the customer's goals and challenges. You talked about pain points while you were talking about building relationships. What are those top 3 challenges, right? Does your product actually address those challenges? Is this like a short-term pain, long-term pain? I think learning more about the customer and spending time trying to understand what they're doing helps you build out a more credible outreach program for them. I've received a lot of cold calls as well, and I do respond to them when I feel like, okay, you know what, this can actually help me. So when you're addressing that, hey, here's the value that you'll get out of it. This morning I received a cold email, actually, true story.
Ooh.
It had a picture of a dog sitting on paper, and I did not read. It was not a great one, but I did not read anything around it except I was like, what is this dog doing here? It's in my work email, right? So, and then I'm like, okay, this is not what I want to see first thing in the morning. So, I mean, be mindful about what you're sending out. Yes, I mean, you have to change the conversation to the outcome rather than focusing on, hi, I have a great solution for you. That's not how you approach it, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think those are the couple of things. Also, think about how do you make that customer, the person you're reaching out to, look great internally. Everyone's looking to grow their careers. Everyone has some motivations. Are you able to tap into that particular motivation and say, hey, if you get from point A to point B, or you've shown X% growth, how does that make that person look good? Do they get set up for or a promotion in the next cycle because of this great result, right? You have to think about that. And that works in the reverse order as well. Hey, have you done something as a company which isn't working for that contact or your champion? Does that not make them look great, right? So think about these things, be mindful.
I love all of that. Those are so good. Okay. I'd love to hear from both of you on this next one. What are some of the best ways to map out your goals and track your progress? Are there any tools that you would recommend for doing this?
Yeah, I mean, everyone has goals. Everyone has something that they want to achieve in their professional lives. I would definitely think about putting them down on paper. Actually, here at HashiCorp, we have something called a personal development plan, or a PDP, which a manager and a direct report, they work together on. I think it's a great place for me to actually have conversations with everyone on the team, understand what their personal goals are. Yeah, I mean, it could be, hey, I want to get promoted to the next level. And then you start working on these things, right? What are the things that you talked about perception a little bit?
Yeah.
What are the things that you could do to improve on that perception? Like, hey, I want to be more focused on technical skills. I want to build a program around, building relationships with customers or something to that effect. I think you are in charge of your own, personal development plan there. So it's a great idea to build one and share them with your managers. I would highly, highly recommend it. And also, as a manager or leader, I would work on consistent feedback. Every company has cycles where twice a year or maybe once a year, you're like, give feedback to your direct reports. I would like to flip that conversation to make it more consistent. Every conversation you're having, is there an opportunity to call out something, right? That will help the person get closer to their goals. I think that only comes through if you have that mapped out with your leaders in the first place.
Yeah, and I think from my perspective, because Priyanka is a hiring manager, I think from an individual contributor perspective as well, you got to attack both sides, right? One is Priyanka has been helping me with my goals, but I come to her with the goals. And I think what you said was a very hard lesson that I had to learn when I was a lot younger and earlier in my career, is that I thought my manager would help me do that. And it's a difference between me owning and driving it and coming to her for guidance versus her and expecting her to know what my goals are and also how to get to them and vocalizing them. And it depends honestly on what company you're at. Some companies are very structured and they have like a whole guideline with questions. If you're at a smaller company or maybe a startup, they might not have as diligent of process and documentation around those things. But my biggest thing is you are in charge of your career and no one else. No one else is going to advocate for you as much as you. Your manager helps you along that journey, but you need to be in charge of what they want to, what you need their help with, right? And it's not just, I want to get promoted, it's, I want to elevate my brand within the company around technical areas, or I want to work on more public speaking, or I want to do a really impactful project that blah, 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 right? And one of the things that I do to help make Priyanka's job easy, because let's face it, your manager probably has 5 to 10 direct reports. And thinking that they're going to remember between 5 to 10 of you all of the amazing things that you've done is crazy. So I started this, one of the girls in my Women in Tech group called like a humble brag sheet, which all it is 2 columns, what you did and what the impact was, and then maybe a date. So like 2.5 columns. And I just try to keep it updated. And like, I just did a workshop that had 75 people there, or I'm doing this event to help elevate, our brand, right? Just continually adding that up. Because the other thing is like when you do your performance evaluations, maybe it's once or twice a year, and it's so hard to remember all of it. So keep a sheet of what you've done and what the impact was. And it is so great to just hand it over to your manager and say, here's all the amazing things I did. And anything that you can do to make their job easier. At my last consulting firm that I was at, I had to make like a 10 PowerPoint slide and create the whole story for them. And they literally didn't even, like, I filled all of it in, right? Like ghost wrote everything. I collected customer feedback, I copied and pasted from emails, right? Anything that you can do to help your manager's job easier will help you
Absolutely
advocate for them.
I've seen 2 different varying types of, talk about performance appraisal time, where one is very, very skinny saying that, yeah, I did well, A, B, and C, but then another person giving you as much detail, you're going to kind of replicate that effort. It's a human tendency to do so. So yeah, absolutely. I love the humble brag sheet.
Yeah.
It's so useful to hear about that. One, you're helping your manager help you. And 2, as humans with a negativity bias, and to go back on the imposter syndrome, conversation, it's good to reread that sheet. It's good to look at, let's look at the past month. Oh, I did all these great things, because it's easy to remember, oh, I messed up this or didn't do that, blah, blah, blah. But I love when it's just in one place. You can just go, oh, look at that, look at that, look at that. That was a good week.
And you could bring those with your interviews, right? What's the impact you've had at your last job when you need to update your resume, which is so god awful to have to do, let's be honest, So having that sheet is just so helpful for your memory. If you've been at a company a long time, the more you update it more frequently, the less painful it is when you have to do it in your reviews.
I love that. And a shout out to Danny. It's not bragging if it's facts, LOL, says Danny in the chat, which is totally here for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have time for just a couple more questions. The tech industry is an ever-changing environment. What's your strategy for staying up to date on the latest advancements? Are there any certifications you'd recommend for professionals in technical sales?
I think it's a great idea to do certifications generally. I would say get one in your product area or your industry area that's relevant to the business you're doing, right? Think about a customer when they're talking to you or coming to you as a technical advisor. They're probably going to throw up their LinkedIn and take a look at, why are you so credible? Why are you the right person to tell me what to do? I definitely think there are a few that we could recommend. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And like in our field, like the AWS solution architect is a great one. We also have certifications for our products like Terraform certified professional. And then we have like Vault certified professional. So especially if you're interviewing at that company or other companies, a lot of them have certification programs on that specific product. But generally the cloud providers, if you like to be in our space, are really great ones, because most companies use a cloud provider or use multiple cloud providers. And as another example, like I have a long-term goal of going into leadership. And so I used my educational budget at my company, and Priyanka helped me make a case, and I was able to take a leadership accelerator program. So a lot of companies have educational budgets. So if that's something that you really like, look for that when you're applying at other places. I think it really shows that they want to invest in their employees, because it's great to have that on a LinkedIn, but we are so focused in our job all the time, we don't have enough time to focus on other areas of like your own personal growth. And I love that this person who asked this question is really interested in that. And I think that's also a great thing to highlight when you're interviewing. It's like, no one asked me to take this AWS solutions architect, but guess what? I really was interested in it. And like, let's say again, you come from a non-traditional background and you're like, yeah, I was a teacher, but guess what? I took this certification. No one asked me to do it because I'm so passionate about this product. And here's the proof, right? So these certifications, again, help you create your story. I think it says a lot about you as a person who's constantly wanting to grow and, soak up as much education as possible, and, coming up with an education plan for yourself too. And, Hunter, I talked about my imposter syndrome of not being technical enough. One of the things that I do is I create an education plan on, instead of saying I'm not technical enough, I reframe it to, I need to know more information about Kubernetes architecture. And then I create an education plan of, okay, what LinkedIn Learning or like Udemy courses can I take on this thing? And then I asked for a technical mentor. Shout out to Neil, who always helps me out with my technical questions. But it's like, have a plan for the things that you want to learn more about, instead of just saying, oh, I'll never learn this. Oh, this is too hard, right? Like these technical certifications or any certifications really highlight about you and your passion, and that you are willing to go above and beyond for anything.
And very recently we were on an interview. I know, one of the first things this person told me was, I really wanted to apply to this role, and I actually did this certification in the last couple of weeks. I think that elevates you so much because you've
Absolutely.
put in that effort to go through a certification program, and the outcome is that you know so much more about the product, and you're able to talk about stuff very, very easily on the interview. So I would highly recommend it, actually.
If you have time.
Make the
There's
time.
that.
But it does put you apart from the other candidates for sure, that you're going above and beyond. I completely agree.
Yeah. So we have just a couple minutes left. And someone asked about dealing with rejections and how to stay motivated. Priyanka, you talked about some tips, and we also, the brag sheet might help us. You want to just touch on anything else before we wrap up?
Well, as someone who's experienced in online dating, dealing with rejections is a very commonplace, and it comes with the territory, right? It's like you have to stay focused. It's not a personal rejection when you hear a no. It's really about, it's a not yet. It's not a no, or it's a not right now. It's really a numbers game. So you can't take those rejections personally. It's just a part of the process. And you really can't take the rejection of your product as a rejection of you ever. Make sure you separate those out, and, stay focused at the end and at the outcomes that Priyanka talks so much about. Is stay focused on the outcomes, because just like online dating, if one of them goes well, then it's worth it. And all of the other hundreds of people that said no, it doesn't matter, because you have the one that said yes, and it was worth all of it to get to there. So keep going. Keep going is what I would say. And, sometimes you have good days, sometimes you have bad days. And yeah, take a look at your brag sheet if you're having a bad day, or take breaks for yourself. Self-care is so important these days, and if you're having a bad day, take some time, come back full force tomorrow and tackle it again when you're focused and have more energy for it.
Oh, such good advice. It's so important. Okay, friends. So we also asked a few questions before we got together here. So we asked the two of you a couple questions. First off, we said, how would you describe the culture in one word?
Well, I said kindness. At HashiCorp, actually, we have a lot of principles that we strive to live by. I think kindness really stands out to me because I see people take it very seriously, and I see people being very, very kind to each other. No question is silly. Nothing is unachievable. People will always guide you. I think that's such a key quality to have as a company.
Oh, and the gratitude portal.
Yeah, we have a thank you for reminding me. We have a gratitude portal where, if you finish 1 year, then you get points, and then you can go spend them in a e-commerce store. I think that's, just ways that the company has to kind of show you that they really care for you.
And we have the Talk Thanks Slack channel, and every time you can you can you go to the Slack channel and then you mention the name and then what you're thankful to them for, and then you get points within Slack. So it's really visible of who, like, so someone who spoke at our all hands, they like crushed their presentation. So someone put in there like, great job on the presentation. And then everyone was like +1, +1, +1. So yeah, I think it's a core part of us.
And I'm new to HashiCorp. I think relatively, I've been here a quarter. And I think this is the one that stood out to me the most, honestly.
I love that. We have our version of that on Slack is our channel is called Warm and Fuzzy Feelings. Warm and Fuzzy Feedback. Warm and Fuzzy Feedback. That's it.
Oh, feedback. Oh, that's even better.
Yeah.
It's a warm and fuzzy gift.
I like
yes,
that.
yes, it is a gift. It is a gift. We also asked, what's your favorite part about working at HashiCorp?
Yeah, I think post-COVID life is very different. And before, I've always worked in person, especially working in consulting or at customer sites, and working at a remote company. Flexibility and asynchronous communication is so different for me, but it's also really, really nice. Like, because everyone's remote, everyone is very respectful of people's schedule. Like, some people work 7 to 4, some people 9 to 5, or like, hey, if you need to go to the grocery store during your lunchtime, or like block something out, as long as you finish your work, no one really cares. Or people are very respectful, like, hey, can we go asynchronous on this communication? We don't need to have a meeting for no reason. So I really like the flexibility of your schedules, but also just, we were remote before COVID happened. And so I felt like we were kind of ahead of the game on certain things, like, again, the not the Zoom part, but just about workplace culture and, saying, hey, people have their own, like, so many people have kids and need to pick up their kids. And, when you work in a remote culture, you have to have a lot more trust in people because you don't see what they're doing at the office every single day. And I think the flexibility part really shows up around that, where we let people be who they are and have families and, have people that they need to take care of.
I love that. And when we asked about interviewing advice, you both had some great comments on that and some tips. Would you all like to jump in a little deeper on that before we wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, I would say be prepared. I love interviews where I know I can have that, healthy conversation both ways, because I know the person who is interviewing is prepared to ask me questions, is prepared with, I know what the company does. I'm super motivated because ABC. I talked about someone who's very recently did an entire certification. That was a lot, but I think that goes to show that you're prepared, right? Those make for great conversations. You remember great conversations while you go through an interview process. So it's as simple as that.
You remember good conversations. That's a good point. And yeah, I mean, from the technical standpoint, it's like you need to know about what the core use cases are of the products that you are. So as an example, Terraform is for infrastructure as code, or like Vault is secrets management. So just being able to have like an elevator pitch, 1 to 2 sentences about what the product is that you're looking for. Like, again, kind of like the grandma version of it, I think says a lot. So understand the key use cases of the products that you're interviewing for at the minimum, and really just the product that this company is trying to solve for. And if you know that, you would be surprised how many people don't come with that kind of information prepared. So like knowing what the products are, what kind of key challenges we help customers solve for, or even having customer stories, those are easy to remember, right? Like we helped Comcast with reduce their deployment time from 3 days to 20 minutes. Like those are easy things, but also really cool things that you're like, oh, they did their research. And I think that speaks a lot. And then the last piece will be like, especially if we're interviewing for technical roles, most company products have a free version or a free trial. So if you have the time, invest in playing around with the product. All of HashiCorp's products are open source, so they're all free for you to use as well and play around with it. Again, you don't have to be an expert, but just to show that you took the time to play around with it, I think speaks a lot to how you would handle a customer scenario.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, what an amazing hour. You're getting some love in the chat too. People are thanking you for this webinar. Oh, chat's blown up. It's on fire now. This was so great. So thank you for sharing your time and your knowledge with us and the community. Kelly, Priyanka, you're both such wonderful people to be in the Zoom room with. I'm so glad you got to be in a real room together as well. And I just love having you here. I hope we get to do it again. And I hope we get to do a lot more events with HashiCorp. Just so fun today. And to our community, thank you so much for all of your questions. It was so awesome to have your participation in this. We really appreciate you. Be sure to follow HashiCorp on the Power to Fly website so you can stay up to date on their open roles and their benefits and many, many, many more fun events. So with that, I hope you all have a great rest of your day and take care, everybody. We'll see you at the next one.
Thank you for the time.
And thank you, Hunter, for being an amazing MC. We heart you.
Thank you. I accept it. I feel it.
I would put a warm and fuzzy comment in your Slack channel about how amazing MC you are.
Oh, I'm going to take a sound clip of this. I'm going to drop it in that Slack channel.
Exactly. Great. All right. Thank you all. Have a great
Thanks,
day.
everybody. Have a good